Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about GI tract physiology. So first, GI tract, gastrointestinal system. It helps in digestion and absorption of food. So for digestion absorption of food, we need certain GI secretions and GI motility, which is regulated by our enteric nervous system, and GI hormones. Okay, before going into the topic, let us understand the basic anatomy of the GI tract, that is layers of GI tract. See, from outer to inner, we have serosa, muscularis, propria, submucosa, and mucosa. So we have two plexus. One is myenteric plexus, which is present in the muscularis propria. So in muscularis propria we have two types of muscles, that is inner circular muscles and outer longitudinal muscles. Between in the submucosa and mucosa we have one more plexus. Those are called as submucosal plexus or Meissner plexus. This myenteric plexus, GI motility, they control the GIT motility, whereas the submucosal plexus, GI secretions, they regulate. Next, before going into the topic, first let us understand GI secretions. The first secretion which everyone gets while seeing food or thinking about food or a thought about food is our saliva. Saliva, it is secreted by, we have three pairs of salivary glands. Those are submandibular, submaxillary, and sublingual. These are our major salivary glands. We have minor salivary glands also. Those are Weber's glands, which are present in the tonsils, and von Ebner's gland, which are present in the base of the tongue. So actually, next, what are the functions of saliva? First, it helps in deglutition. Deglutition means swallowing of food. Next is speech, defense mechanism, because it consists of lysozyme, certain antibodies, certain antibacterial products. Next, and it also has enzyme for digestion of carbohydrates, fats. Note, in saliva we don't have any enzyme for digestion of protein. That's the reason the protein products, they always taste bland. So carbohydrate digesting enzymes are known as salivary amylase. It is also known as ptyalin. Fats, lingual lipase. And one more function, it helps in the lubrication and it prevents dryness of the mouth. Next, for protection defense mechanism, it includes IgA antibodies, that too secretory type of IgA antibodies, lactoferrin, lysozymes. These are the antibacterial products. Next, regulation of the secretion of saliva. See, actually salivation is an unconditional reflex. So it is regulated by our autonomic nervous system. So sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic nervous system, it helps in increased secretions, that too thick saliva is produced, and parasympathetic also, it helps in increased secretion, that too thin watery saliva, but majority of profound increase in secretion is by parasympathetic nervous system. So a note point, some physiological factors which increases salivary secretion. So for example, if we see any food on the roadside, like sight of the food, smell of the food, thought of the food, which increases the salivary secretion. So saliva secretion decreases during sleep, fear and fatigue. Next, innervation of salivary glands. So as already told, we have three pairs of salivary glands, that is parotid gland, sublingual gland and submandibular gland or submaxillary gland. Okay, see, the parotid gland, it is lined via aortic ganglion, which is through cranial nerve number 9, whereas the sublingual and submandibular gland, cranial number 7, that is our vagus nerve. That is our facial nerve through submandibular ganglion. It supplies both submandibular and sublingual glands. Certain clinical aspects. Absent secretion is called as atyalism. Decreased secretion of saliva leads to dry mouth, which is called as xerostomia. So we have certain abnormalities like Fraze syndrome, gustatory lacrimation or crocodile tears. So in this condition, during increased salivation, there will be increased sweating, because whenever during the facial nerve damage, like in parotid surgeries, the nerve regenerates, it innervates mistakenly for sweat glands. That's the reason while chewing of food, the person starts sweating. This is called as Fraze syndrome, or it innervates some lacrimal glands. So during the salivation, there will be increased lacrimation. This is called as crocodile tears or gustatory lacrimation. Next, so after the saliva, while coming to the gastric secretions. See, daily 2.5 liters per day is the volume of the gastric secretions. So since these secretions are acidic in nature, so the pH will be around 1.5 to 3. These are the most acidic secretions because of the presence of hydrochloric acid. We have gastric glands So gastric glands have different kinds of cells. For example, on the surface we have surface cells. They produces bicarbonate ions. These helps in neutralization of the acid. Next we have neck cells. These are the stem cells of the gastric glands. Next we have parietal cells. They produces HCl, hydrochloric acid, and intrinsic factor, that is caseous intrinsic factor, which helps in the vitamin B12 absorption. Next, enterochromaffin like cells, ECL cells, enterochromaffin like cells. They produce histamine. Next we have chief cells. They produce pepsinogen enzyme, which requires for the protein breakdown. And we have antral cells, or antral gastric glands. They have G cells. Gastrin hormone increases the gastric acid secretions. Actually, the gastric glands, the shape of the gastric glands are flask shaped. So kindly refer any online material for the diagrams. Next, while coming to the functions of the gastric secretions, so they helps in digestion of carbohydrates. See, for carbohydrate digestion there is no enzymes in the gastric secretions. For the fats we have gastric lipases. For proteins we have pepsinogen. These are inactivated form, so they are activated by HCl, so they are converted into pepsin. Renin, ReNN again in cows. The acidic nature also helps in protection from microorganisms. So before going, let us understand. See, there are the phases of gastric secretions. See, we have 3 phases: cephalic phase, gastric phase, and we have intestinal phase. See, cephalic phase, it contributes about 20 to 30% of the gastric acid secretion. Gastric phase contributes about 60 to 70%. Intestinal phase about 10%. See, cephalic phase, these occurs in the absence of food. So gastric phase, which is seen when food enters stomach. Intestinal phase, it occurs due to the products of protein digestion. So cephalic phase, it is initiated by sight, smell, thought of the food. So gastric phase, it is initiated by the antral G cells. So gastrin cells, they get stimulated and secrete gastrin, which increases acid secretion. Intestinal phase, intestinal G cells, so they also release gastrin and increase gastric acid secretion. So this is about our gastric secretion. While coming to next, pancreatic secretions. See, pancreas is a mixed gland since it has both endocrine and exocrine function. So endocrine function we shall deal in the hormones, that is endocrine physiology. Let us for time's sake, we will discuss about exocrine function of the pancreas. So pancreatic secretions, they helps in the digestion of carbs, that is carbohydrates, proteins and fats. See, carbohydrates are digested by our pancreatic amylase. Proteins are digested by our zymogens. Zymogens are the inactive enzymes. Those include trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, procarboxypeptidases. The reason why the zymogens are inactive in pancreas because it prevents autodigestion of the pancreas. See, these enzymes are inactive. They should be get activated. So, trypsinogen, in the presence of enterokinase, it converts into active form trypsin. This trypsin, in the cascade mechanism, it activates both chymotrypsinogen and procarboxypeptidases. So they get their active forms respectively chymotrypsin and carboxypeptidases. So these three, the trypsin, chymotrypsin, and they helps in the protein digestion. Next, clinical aspect. Premature activation of the pancreatic enzymes inside the pancreas leads to autodigestion of the pancreas, and it leads to a condition called as acute pancreatitis, which is a life-threatening condition. It's a medical emergency condition. It should be assessed immediately. Next, we are coming to bile secretions. So, biliary secretions. The liver is the main site of bile synthesis. That is, it consists of 97% of the water, while the gallbladder storage and concentration of bile means for the concentration the water content reduces. That is about the stored bile consists of 87% of the water. So what are the functions? It helps in digestion and absorption of lipids, and also helps in excretion of bile pigments and cholesterol. So what are the constituents of bile? Let's understand. So primary bile acids in the liver, those are cholic acid, deoxycholic acid. In the presence of intestinal flora, they are converted into secondary bile acids in the intestine. So those are deoxycholic acid and lithocholic acid. These secondary bile acids, they get conjugated in the liver, that is with glycine or taurine, to form bile salts. So example, sodium glycocholic acid, glycocholate. It's salts. So we have a concept called enterohepatic circulation. So the main purpose of the enterohepatic circulation to minimize the energy consumption during bile synthesis. From terminal ileum, again it is via enterohepatic circulation, it reaches the from terminal ileum. It teaches liver and gallbladder. It takes place 6 to 8 times, 8 times a day. Next, last but not least, our intestinal secretions. Intestinal secretions is also called as succus entericus from crypts of Leberkuhn. They produces succus enterica, that is intestinal secretions. We have cells, we have goblet cells. They produces mucus for protection, and we have epithelial cells. These are the source of intestinal secretions. When we have Paneth cells at the base, so they produces lysozymes, defensins. These are the antibacterial products. They act against bacteria, antibacterial agents. So that's about the GI secretions. So in the video, on the whole, we have got a gist about GI secretions. We started from the saliva. How many salivary glands? What are the products they digest? Next, we'll come into the intestinal gastric secretions, intestinal secretions, pancreatic secretions. In the next video, we will see about digestion and absorption, gastrointestinal hormones, gastrointestinal motility. Thank you.